what's up, everyone, and welcome back to the Endzone Report. As always, I will be your host, Chris, and this is a show where we tackle the NFL. Well, we closed the book on the Week 18, and we are locked and loaded for the playoffs. We have the wild card round headed up this weekend on Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. There is a game on Monday night. After that, I do believe that it goes only to Saturdays and Sundays, since that the games start to shrink in numbers. Lots to cover on the show today. We got a bunch of coach firings happening on Black Monday. Also, a few injuries that occurred during Week 18. We have some more storylines. The bracket is set for the wildcard round, so we'll go through all those matchups. We have the finale of the Chase-O-Meter, where we will crown our winner of that bet between Megan and Jimmy. Then we'll get into the fantasy corner for the hero and villain of Week 18, because some of you crazy nuts do have championships in your fantasy leagues for Week 18 for some reason. Then we'll get into my picks for the wildcard round, and then we'll show us the money, hopefully, with our weekly bets to end the show. Before we get into all that, though, a couple reminders at the top of the episode. You can watch the show every week at youtube.com/the Endzone Report. You can also watch and listen to the show on Spotify as well, if that one is your platform of choice. You can follow, subscribe the show. It helps a lot, and I appreciate everyone that has supported the show the first year. It's been a really, really awesome year, and I'm looking forward to the playoff season on the podcast and reacting to all those crazy playoff games that we are about to get to that will lead up to the Super Bowl in February, and I'm excited to react to the Super Bowl as well when that happens. You can also follow the show on all the social media platforms, X, Instagram, and Facebook. I post all the artwork from each and every episode, so you can go check out those, as well as breaking news around the league. So with that, let's head into all those coach firings and some of the injuries that happened during Week 18. Some of them are playoff altering injuries for sure. So let's get into the show today. So first off, I'll get into those injuries, and then we'll dive into all these coach firings that have happened on Monday and Tuesday. Cam Ward, quarterback of the Tennessee Titans, injured his shoulder during the Week 18 matchup, and he left the game early. So we'll monitor that on the offseason, because, of course, the Titans are not in the playoffs. They'll be looking ahead to the NFL draft. J.J. McCarthy, quarterback of the Minnesota Vikings, left the game early as well. With a hand injury. It looks like it is his right hand. We'll monitor that situation. I know the biggest question right now is, will J.J. McCarthy be the guy for the Vikings in 2026, or will they pivot to a different option? We'll monitor that, of course, as well in the offseason. Brock Purdy, quarterback of the San Francisco 49ers, had a shoulder stinger at the end of the game, but he seems to be just fine and ready to go against the Eagles in the playoffs this weekend. And then Alex Pierce, this wasn't an injury, but he was ejected for touching one of the officials while he was arguing his case on one of his touchdown catches. He, of course, is one of the wide receivers of the Indianapolis Colts. He had a huge game in that Week 18 matchup, but he ultimately got ejected for bumping into one of the officials, and they were not having it. So he was ruled out. Could have had 3 touchdowns and even more yards on his stats. So that kind of rounds up all the injuries. Let's get to those firings. We had a lot of firings throughout the week here. Let's start with the head coaches and one GM that was fired. Kevin Stefanski, head coach or former head coach of the Cleveland Browns, was let go this week. He will be a hot topic of discussion as all these now vacant head coaching spots are now opening around the league. I think he is more likely to get another head coaching job rather than stepping down to a coordinator spot. Raheem Morris, former head coach of the Atlanta Falcons, has also been let go. He may end up becoming more of a coordinator spot. I'm not sure if he will land a head coaching job, but there are a bunch of vacancies, so maybe he will get tapped for one of those. Also with the Atlanta Falcons, they let go of their GM, Terry Fontenot, so they will be looking for a new GM as well. Pete Carroll, former head coach of the Las Vegas Raiders, was fired this week as well. I think he's more than likely going to be retiring after this 1-year stint with the Raiders. I can't imagine he's going to want another head coaching spot somewhere to start from scratch. So I kind of hope for his sanity that he just calls it quits and retires on a really awesome career of his. Most of it spent in Seattle, of course. The Arizona Cardinals finally fired Jonathan Gannon as their head coach. He is another one that will maybe most likely get a coordinator spot rather than a head coaching spot, but we'll kind of keep track of where he ends up. The biggest shocker of the week, this was kind of rumored, but I didn't think it would actually happen. But John Harbaugh, longtime head coach of the Baltimore Ravens, has been let go by the team. He, just like Stefanski, will be a hot commodity for head coach. I know he has been linked to teams like the Giants, the Falcons, and even the Raiders as top landing spots, but we will certainly monitor where he ends up. I know another rumor is that maybe he steps down into the coordinator spot and works with his brother Jim down in Los Angeles with the Chargers, but I got to imagine he's going to want a head coaching spot, so we'll monitor him, of course. Getting into the coordinators that were let go, Cliff Kingsbury parted ways with the Washington Commanders. He was their former OC. He is looking to move up into the head coaching spot. So we'll see if he ends up with that or if he just sticks with the OC with another team. Also with the Washington Commanders, they have let go defensive coordinator John Witt Jr. So they will be looking for both a OC and a DC this offseason. Matt Eberflus was let go by the Dallas Cowboys, their former defensive coordinator. I'm sure just by name alone, they might, a team, if they're desperate enough for another DC, might grab him. But he just wasn't very successful in Chicago or Dallas the last few years. And then the last one on the list is Johnny Morton, former OC of the Detroit Lions, was let go as well. So they will be in the market for another offensive coordinator. Tough year for the Detroit Lions. You know, you lose Aaron Glenn and Ben Johnson. Ben Johnson seems to be having a stellar year with Chicago as their new head coach. Aaron Glenn, not so much as the head coach of the New York Jets, but Detroit Lions definitely are missing Ben Johnson for sure. So they will be in the market for another OC come the 2026 season. We'll also keep an eye out on some of the other possible head coaching changes. You know, the big rumor now is, will Tomlin retire after this season? That, of course, will leave the Pittsburgh Steelers head coaching spot vacant, and that'll be a very hot spot to go after. Also, there's been reports that if the Packers end up getting kicked out of the playoffs very early, maybe even this week against Chicago, they could part ways with LaFleur as their longtime head coach as well in Green Bay. So that could be another hot landing spot as well. So, and I know that's always in the minds too, that, you know, maybe Stafford, you know, calls it quits this year after a long career. And that would mean maybe Sean McVay leaves the Rams, which would leave the Rams head coach vacant as well. So there's a lot of possibilities that can happen. The coaching carousel will be quite crazy this offseason, as well as some of the quarterback carousels as well. You know, Kyler Murray has been heavily rumored to be leaving Arizona, as well as Tua leaving Miami. Kirk Cousins just restructured his contract with the Atlanta Falcons this week, so he could be another one that will be looking for a new team, as they could probably cut him come March. And, you know, there's always been those rumors with Lamar in Baltimore. Maybe he ends up going to a different team. But I think with them parting ways with John Harbaugh, with the most reported reason that he was losing the locker room, they could just keep Lamar and look for a coach that can have better chemistry with that team, specifically with their franchise quarterback Lamar. So lots of craziness that's going to be happening in the next, you know, couple months with the offseason. So, but those are the coaching firings so far. So let's head over to the Week 18 storylines and the rest of the Week 18 reaction. The first storyline coming out of Week 18 is Myles Garrett finally sets the NFL season sack record with 23 sacks on the 2025 season. So he is now the king of that record. It was really awesome to see Myles Garrett get that. He's a definite, first ballot Hall of Famer. We were all rooting for him to get this sack. And of course, the sack was on my boy Joe Burrow, but I don't think he would have liked it any other way. Joe Burrow is one of the great quarterbacks currently in the league, so to have Myles Garrett's final sack on Joe Burrow was pretty sweet. You can kind of tell that Joe Burrow may have let him sack him there, realizing that this would probably be his only chance to break that record. So he kind of just, threw the guy a favor and said, here, sack me this one time so you can get that record. So Joe Burrow hasn't really come out and said that he purposely did it, but if you can go watch the footage, you can kind of tell that Burrow may have let Myles get that one just so that he could break the record, which, kudos to him for being a team player. Both teams really didn't have any stakes in this game. They're both eliminated from playoffs. This is really just preserving that record. So maybe Joe Burrow was just kind of like, I'll throw the guy a bone. He's a really good defensive player. Let's get it that record for him. So Myles Garrett is now the single season sack record holder for the NFL with 23 sacks. Massive, massive achievement for him and a great season overall. Second storyline, we now have our number one seeds in the playoffs this year. NFC side, that is the Seattle Seahawks led by Sam Darnold. And then on the AFC side, we have the Denver Broncos led by Bo Nix, who is now making his second appearance in the playoffs as being a starter or a rookie starter last year. And now Sam Darnold has achieved what he slightly missed out on last year with the Minnesota Vikings, and that is sealing that number one seed, which he was gunning for last year. But they unfortunately lost that game against Detroit as they battled for that number one seed. So they will have the bye weeks, of course, this week, and then we'll look at the matchups for next week with them. But very exciting for Seahawks fans and Broncos fans like me for getting that number one seed. Now they have a week to kind of prep and get ready and watch how these other teams play this week and what kind of strategies they'll come up with. So that is very, very exciting to see Bo Nix get that number one seed in only his second year. He has had a massive, massive 2 years already in the league, and very exciting as a Broncos fan to see Bo Nix get into the playoffs once more. Your third storyline of the week, the Panthers and Steelers find their way to sneak into the playoffs after a crazy Week 18 matchup. The Panthers ultimately lost to Tampa Bay, but with the Atlanta Falcons winning over I believe it was the Saints, they were able to take the division and clinch a spot. The Steelers ultimately beat Baltimore on Sunday night in overtime and seal the deal on that AFC North and get that last spot as well. The Steelers will face the Houston Texans in Pittsburgh, and the Panthers will host the Rams in the wildcard round. So we'll go through those matchups for sure. Your fourth storyline coming out of Week 18, the Raiders have now officially clinched the number one draft spot, and it's looking like they're going to go with the college quarterback Fernando Mendoza, but we'll see what happens for sure as we get closer to that NFL draft. But the Raiders now hold the golden ticket, the number one draft spot in the NFL draft. And then your last storyline is a historic storyline. The New York Jets ended up making NFL history this season, and it's not a good one. They ended the season with 0 interceptions on the defensive side. Aaron Glenn, the all-star defensive coordinator for the Detroit Lions, now head coach for the Jets, was unable to have his defense get one single interception in the NFL this season. That is freaking wild, and it's such a crazy achievement on their part that I just had to mention it on the podcast. It's historic, and it's kind of embarrassing for Jets fans to be the first team in NFL history to have 0 interceptions on the defensive side of the ball in an entire season. That is quite an achievement. It's almost as if they had to try to do that. That's very, very hard to go with 0 interceptions for the season. So those are your 5 storylines coming out of Week 18. Let's head over to the playoff bracket and look at these matchups here. So on the NFC side, we have the Los Angeles Rams, like I said, headed to the Carolina Panthers. The San Francisco 49ers will head to Philly to take on Jalen Hurts and the Eagles. The Green Bay Packers will head to Chicago and take on Ben Johnson and the Bears. The Seattle Seahawks, of course, have the bye this week with that number 1 seed. So we will return with Seattle next week in the divisional round. The AFC side of the NFL, we've got the Houston Texans heading to Pittsburgh to take on Rodgers and the Steelers. Josh Allen and the Bills will head to Jacksonville to take on a very hot Jacksonville team led by Liam Cohen and Trevor Lawrence. The Los Angeles Chargers will head to New England to face Drake May and that stellar Patriots team. And then, of course, Denver Broncos are on a bye, so we will return to them in the divisional round as well. So some interesting matchups. We'll get into my picks a little later on in the episode for sure, but just want to kind of break down what the wild card round looks like for this week. So I think the most exciting matchups this week will probably be the Niners-Philly game, the Packers-Chicago game, and then the Houston-Pittsburgh game should be very exciting. I think the Patriots have a really good shot at just annihilating the Chargers, and the Rams could possibly blow out the Panthers. But we've been wrong before. It could be a crazy close game for those. So that is your playoff bracket starting in the wild card round, and we'll see how that goes this week. The finale of the Chase-O-Meter has finally come upon us, and it's a glorious one. It was a bumpy ride to the start of the season with Chase Brown, but he ended up pulling it off. Now, granted, and I'm going to put Jimmy on the spot here, he did bring up a good point that it wasn't until Joe Burrow came back from injury and kind of lit a spark on this team. But it was still a decent season overall for him. So looking at Chase Brown's Week 18 stats, he had 13 carries for 72 total rushing yards. He had 6 targets for 4 receptions and another 18 yards to the air, and he did catch a receiving touchdown this week, which brings us to what was his final RB ranking on the season. He is now the running back 7, which means that Megan, the Gridiron Goddess, has won the bet between Mr. James Martins, as Chase Brown has cracked the top 10 in a glorious fashion. So congrats to her on her $20 on winning the Chase-O-Meter. We'll see what other bet we can come up with next year during the 2026 season. But again, round of applause for Megan on calling her shot on Chase Brown, sticking with it all year, and coming out on top with this bet against Jimmy. So congrats to her. She will get her $20 as soon as possible. With that, let's head over to the fantasy corner, because some of you nut jobs just like to play fantasy in Week 18. So here are your hero and villain of Week 18. As much as I did not want to do this, I did come up with a hero and villain of Week 18 for all of you crazy nut jobs that do have fantasy football going on in Week 18. But if you do, please talk to your commissioner. If you are the commissioner, please change this in your league to have your championship in Week 17. Week 18 is just so up in the air with, playoff scenarios and teams resting their starters, and it just gets very anxiety-ridden and crazy with all the start and sit stuff. So please, for the future, don't have your fantasy championships in Week 18. But if you are people of habit or just have way too much fun because you're sick people of having championship weeks in Week 18, I will still do the hero and villain for Week 18 for all of you. So looking at your hero of the week, that is Matthew Stafford. He had 37.3 fantasy points on the week. That's 25 completions for a total of 259 passing yards. He had another 3 rushing yards on the ground and then had 4 passing touchdowns in this game. Incredible week for Stafford. So if you started Stafford, he probably helped you get your championship this past weekend. Now, your villain of the week. This was tough because there was a lot of duds in Week 18 just because of the game script or other scenarios with injuries and stuff like that. But I tried to pick a villain that you most likely started because of the importance of that matchup. So with this week's villain of the week, that is wide receiver Mike Evans of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. This was a huge game for them. They needed to win this game to hopefully clinch a playoff spot in the division for the NFC South. They ended up coming up on top with the win, but the Falcons ruined their party by winning their matchup. But Mike Evans, so if you most likely started him because, you've been riding the Mike Evans train. You've been waiting for him to come back from injury. He's the number one wide receiver for this team for many years, including this year. But he ended up with 5.4 fantasy points on the week, 2 targets. He had caught both of those targets for 32 yards and did not have a single touchdown in this game. So if you started Mike Evans, he most likely helped you lose your matchup, if not be the reason to lose it, with just a measly 5 points. So that is your hero and villain of Week 18. Again, please do not have your championships on Week 18. It'll be a lot less stressful for you. The fantasy season is already so stressful enough. Please do not put yourself and your league through a Week 18 championship. But I understand there are leagues that have been around for decades, and they're just creatures of habit, and they're just used to Week 18. So more power to you. But please talk to your league mates on changing that. Please have it in Week 17. Trust me, it's a lot less stressful. Let's head over to our weekly preview as we break down the wild card games and go with my picks. Before we get into the matchups for the first round of the playoffs, we're going to go through my picks from last week, which were horrible. I think this was the worst week I had. And of course, it's Week 18. It's such a toss up for some of these matchups that don't really matter, or they're resting starters and the backups end up getting more time and outperforming their projections. So it was a very disappointing, but understandably terrible week in picks. I went 7-9. The 9 that I got wrong were the Panthers against the Bucks, the Niners against the Seahawks, the Saints against the Falcons. The Bengals ended up losing by 2 points to the Browns. The Cowboys got annihilated by the Giants. The Bears lost in a very ugly matchup with the Detroit Lions. The Chiefs ended up losing by 2 points to the Raiders, even though before that game they already locked up the number 1 seed. So I think this was just kind of twisting the knife on a division rival for their horrible season. Philly ended up getting killed. Well, not really killed, but, completely outplayed by the Washington Commanders. If I would have known Jalen Hurts was sitting for this game and McKee was starting, I would have picked the Commanders, but I did not obviously get that memo for that game. And then the Baltimore Ravens ultimately lost to the Pittsburgh Steelers on Sunday night. It was a close game. It was a crazy game, and I really wish the Baltimore Ravens would have won that game, but we are here again with Rodgers in the playoffs. So that was my Week 18 picks. Let's head over to the slate for the wild card round of the playoffs. On Saturday, the first game of the week is the Los Angeles Rams heading to the Carolina Panthers. We got Stafford going up against Bryce Young. The Rams are favored by a whopping 10 points. The over-under is 46.5. I'm obviously going with the Rams here. I just can't imagine a world where the Panthers end up winning this. Like, Stafford would have to get injured, or Bryce Young would have to be on some sort of miracle drug to make him an MVP caliber quarterback to win this game against McVay's defense. And they have Devontae Adams coming back for the Rams. I think Kyron Williams is still healthy. Blake Corum should hopefully be back as their second option at the running back position. Puka has been outstanding this year, and Stafford is looking at an MVP season. So I just can't imagine a world where the Rams don't win this game. Maybe it ends up being a close game, but I mean, I could also see it being a double-digit deficit between the two. So I'm going with the Rams this week. Saturday night, we've got the Green Bay Packers headed to Chicago to take on Caleb Williams and the Bears. The Bears are favored by 1 point, so it's basically a toss-up at this point. And the over-under is also 46.5. This was a tough one, but with the way the Bears have been playing down the stretch here and the way that Ben Johnson's coaching this team. They should have Roma Dunze back, hopefully, at wide receiver. So I'm going with the Bears here to win at home. It would be an incredible achievement if Ben Johnson can get a playoff win in his first year as not only the Bears head coach, but a head coach from the very beginning of his career. So I'm going with the Bears here to beat the Packers, but I think this will be a close game. It may end up coming down to a field goal or maybe even a touchdown, but I got the Bears winning this game, but it will be a close one. I'm very excited for it. Sunday, we've got the first game of Sunday being the Buffalo Bills going up against Jacksonville in Jacksonville. The Bills are favored by 1.5. The over-under is a whopping 51.5. This is a tough one. I think this is the one that I was stuck on the most because it's tough betting against Josh Allen. Now, the thing with Josh Allen is he has nobody to throw the ball to, so he will be in command. He will be the superstar in this game for the Bills. The Bills' defense has been pretty good the last half of the year, and Josh Allen is playing out of his mind. So, but on the other side, Jacksonville has an incredible season under Liam Cohen. Trevor Lawrence looks like the quarterback that the Jaguars have been waiting for, that they drafted him for. The acquisition of Jacoby Myers was incredible at the deadline during the season. Their defense has been great. Travis Etienne has been great on the ground. Parker Washington has been a sensation as their third option. And Brian Thomas Jr. has had quite a bummer of a season, but he's still getting involved. Brenton Strange is back from injury at tight end, and he's been great. So it's tough. Trevor Lawrence has targets. He has people to throw it to. They got a run game. But then you have Josh Allen and James Cook. And James Cook has been incredible this season. And the way the Buffalo Bills defense plays tough. If this was in Buffalo, it'd be an easy Buffalo pick for me. But I think I'm going to go with the Jacksonville Jaguars here. I might regret this, but I'm gonna back Trevor Lawrence and the incredible season that he has. And the story has been this. This is Josh Allen's best chance of getting to the Super Bowl and potentially winning it. There's no Joe Burrow, there's no Patrick Mahomes, and there's no Lamar Jackson stopping him. I don't know if you saw the stat here, but every time Josh Allen has made the playoffs, which has pretty much been every year, starting his third year, he has lost to both Mahomes and Joe Burrow. Since those two are out, he has to go against Bo Nix, who I love Bo Nix, but he is still learning. He's still new to the league. You have Trevor Lawrence, who is playing out of his mind this season, but has this tendency to underperform. You have an old man Rodgers. You have CJ Stroud, who has had an up and down year. You have Justin Herbert and a broken Chargers team. I mean, you do have Drake May and the Patriots. I think that would be a tough matchup for him, probably the most out of all these, other than that Denver defense. But this has to be the best option, the best scenario for Josh Allen to get a Super Bowl. But I'm going with the Jaguars. I think he's going to just fall short here. I think Liam Cohen is going to make it very difficult for Josh Allen to make a move here because he has nobody to throw the ball to other than maybe Dalton Kincaid or dumping it off to James Cook. But I think Jacksonville ends up winning this game. It could be a close game, just like the Chicago Packer game. It could come down to a field goal. And then in that case, I definitely trust Cam Little over most kickers now. So I'm going with Jacksonville, but I might regret it. It could be an exciting game. The next game on Sunday, we got the San Francisco 49ers heading to Philly, which is tough to play in Philly, against Jalen Hurts and the Eagles. The Eagles are favored by 3.5. Not surprised there since it's in Philly. The over-under is 46.5, just like the other couple of games. This was a little tougher, but I think the Niners will win this game on the road. I think they are the best shot in the NFC to take down the Eagles in Philly. They have Brock Purdy, who has been amazing. George Kittle should be back and healthy. Hopefully Ricky Pearsall is back. John Jennings has been a great number one target for Brock Purdy. And then you have Christian McCaffrey, who has been incredible this year. And I think they should. This could be another close game, but I think the Niners end up pulling off this game. it's going to be interesting, and it's going to be very disappointing if Philly wins this game because I don't, other than maybe the Seahawks, I don't think anybody else can take the Philadelphia Eagles down if the Niners don't. So if the Niners can hold off the Eagles here, and to be honest, I'm not a big Eagles fan, so I would be just fine if they lost the first round. They won the Super Bowl last year. They can take a back seat and just chill out. And I think the Niners will take this. So that is my pick this week is the 49ers over the Eagles. Sunday night, we've got the Los Angeles Chargers going up against Drake May and that incredible New England Patriots team led by Mike Vrabel. Patriots are favored by 3.5. Not surprised, it is a home game. And the over-under is 46.5 as well. I'm going with the Patriots here. The Patriots have been incredible under Mike Vrabel. Drake May has been going up against Matthew Stafford for MVP this year. Ramondre Stevenson and Travion Henderson have been great at running back. The defense has been pretty good with the Patriots. The Chargers have just been really up and down and a weird team this year. They've lost games they should have won. They won games that surprisingly they ended up winning. I don't know. They're a really frustrating team. But I think the Patriots will win this game at home. I think this one won't be a close game. I think the Patriots could, the way that they've been playing down the stretch here, the last 3 or 4 weeks, I think they could easily win by double digits here. So I think the current spread is a little bit misleading, but I think the Patriots could probably win by at least 10 points here. So I'm going with the Patriots. And then our final game is Monday night. We've got the Houston Texans going to Pittsburgh to take on Old Man Rodgers and the Steelers. The Texans are favored by 3 on the road. The over-under is a measly 39.5. Yeah, this could be a low-scoring game just because the Texan defense has been great. But the Steelers defense has been pretty good as well. So this could come down to a kick because of the low scoring. I'm going with the Houston Texans here. I just don't think Rodgers has what it takes to finish off the season. Even if with it being in Pittsburgh, that Houston Texans defense is going to make it very, very difficult for Rodgers. I know they're going to get DK Metcalf back after his 2-game suspension, but they haven't really been using him, and he hasn't been looking that great either. And what does that leave you with MVS and dump offs to Jalen Warren and Gainwell at the running back position? And they just kind of cycle through tight ends as well with Freiermuth and Washington and Jonnu Smith occasionally. But I'm going with the Houston Texans here. But I'm thinking this is going to be a low-scoring game. It's probably going to come down to a Fairbairn or a Boswell kick to potentially win it. But I'm going on the side of the Texans here. I think the Texans will win this on the road and move on to the playoffs. So those are my picks for the wild card round of the playoffs. We'll look ahead next week to what the divisional round brings. So let's hope I can get all those right. But I'm anticipating I'm going to get at least 2 of those wrong. So I think we're in store for a couple shocking upsets. Like maybe the Panthers end up pulling it off against the Rams, which would be very shocking. But with the season we've had this year, I wouldn't be surprised if the Panthers end up winning round 1 against the Rams. So let's end the show like we always do and see if we can show me the money with our bet of the week. So I haven't had the greatest luck with bets this year. I did win, like I said last week, I won a couple of championships in my money league, so that was nice to kind of make up for most of the betting I did this year. So I'm going to kind of play it a little safe. I think I took one kind of crazy part of this bet. This is a $5 bet to hopefully win. What was it? I think it was about $98. Let me just confirm that here. $90. So no, $97. So $5 for potentially winning $97.35 if this all hits. So I'm gonna run through this real quick and hopefully I can end this week on a high note. So Bryce Young, I'm going on the over on his interception. So I think he'll throw at least one interception against that strong Rams defense. Trevor Lawrence, I'm going to take the over on his passing touchdowns at 1.5. I think he can easily get at least 2 touchdowns, even against that pretty strong Buffalo defense. Also with the Jaguars, I'm going with Parker Washington, who has been incredible down the stretch here. I'm taking the over on his receiving yards. His line is currently at 47.5. And something tells me that Buffalo is going to really focus on Jacoby and Brian Thomas Jr. So I think that leaves a little bit of an opening for Parker Washington. But I still think 47.5 is pretty low for what he's been capable of doing. So I'm going to go with the over. Christian McCaffrey, I'm going to go the over on a touchdown. I think he is pretty much a guaranteed touchdown this week against Philly. Stafford, this one is a little risky, even with a good matchup, but I'm going with the over on his passing touchdowns, which is at 2.5. I think he can get 3 with Devontae Adams back. I think he can get 3 touchdowns against the Carolina Panthers. And then lastly, also going with the Rams to stack with Stafford, I'm going with the Puka Nacua touchdown. I think it's another touchdown guarantee that Puka will get in the end zone against the Carolina Panthers. So that is my bet. Like I said, I kind of went a little safe on this one just so I can hopefully win on a high note this time. So yeah, so that is the episode today. We'll kind of reconvene next week after maybe a very entertaining wildcard round this weekend. So good luck with all your bets if you are betting on the playoff season. Good luck on your picks as well if you do that as well. It should be a fun, exciting playoffs, and I'm super excited to see who comes out on top and who will face the Seahawks and the Broncos as they come out of the bye. So again, if you want to go back and listen to or watch all the episodes from the regular season, we are now in playoff mode for the podcast. We've got a couple of fun segments with potentially some guests coming on again. I will be in Mexico next week, and I've been talking with my buddy James Martins, who has been on the show a few times, and we might have a fun Mexico-themed segment for you guys on next week's episode. So take a look at that. It's going to be a fun time. Looking forward to the playoffs. You can also check out my Cinematic Reviews podcast. It's my movie review podcast that I do every week as well if you're a movie nut like I am. So go ahead and check that out on YouTube and listen to the audio version on whatever podcast listening platform you prefer. But go ahead and check out that as well. I've been doing that for about 3 years, and I'm super excited for the 2026 episode schedule that I'll release on Friday during our Marvel episode. So with that, again, good luck on all your bets. Good luck on your picks. And let's have an awesome NFL playoff run here for the next month or so while we get to the Super Bowl. Later, everyone.